In the summer of 2012, when on a camping trip with my family, I experienced one of the most vivid moments of terror in my life. It was getting late, but still early enough in the night for me to not be too tired. I was sitting around a campfire with my family, and everyone was chatting and having a good time. It's worth noting that the campsite we were on was a permanent one, and it was surrounded by other permanent sites that had various exterior decorations. To my left, down the path leading away from our site, there was one such site that had a wooden fence wrapped with yellow lights and similar lights hanging from posts put up around the actual camper itself. All other lights in said camper were off, and I hadn't seen anyone moving around the site during the day, so I assumed the camper was empty and that the lights outside were on a timer. Further behind that unit was a forest, the very edge of which was barely illuminated by the exterior lights of the site. From where I was sitting, I could make out a line of trees and some branches that reached in my direction. As I stared, though, my mind began to conjure up images of things I thought I could see in the dark, chief among them being a white, oval-shaped ball. My mind raced with fear as I believed I was staring at the face of the Slenderman. Even at 12 years old, I knew I was being ridiculous, but I couldn't shake the fear that had rooted itself in my mind, as if I was going to be the first victim of a creature thought to be purely fictional. That night, I laid awake in my bed asking myself if every snapping twig or rustle of leaves was Slenderman coming to get me. The next morning, I realized what I was looking at was a spot where a tree branch used to be. It had been cut off earlier that week because it was at risk of falling onto the campsites around it. What I thought was a white oval-shaped ball was actually just the inside of a tree. Over a decade later, I look back at that memory and laugh. It was ridiculous of me to even entertain the idea that Slenderman was real, especially when I finally figured out what the thing I saw actually was. I also look back with some sadness, however, as I have never been that scared of a horror character since. This was all thanks to the extremely popular game that was released around that time, Slender, or as it is known today, Slender, the 8 Pages. Though I think the original title is much scarier and more mysterious, I understand why it was changed. To my 12-year-old self, there was nothing more terrifying than the Slenderman, and the game was a huge reason why I even knew about the creature's existence. Even today, some aspects of Slenderman are still creepy to me, which is why I'm saddened to see what has become of it in recent years. From mediocre, repetitive game releases to downright terrible film adaptations and a real-life tragedy, it's not surprising things unfolded how they have. But that's exactly why I've felt so compelled to take a look at the original game and see what exactly made it so horrifying. I want to give this game the recognition it deserves and explain why it's one of the big 3 horror games in my mind, the other 2 being Amnesia: The Dark Descent and Outlast. I truly believe that beneath the memes, cringy fan art, and edgy fanfics, there is still a super scary monster that the internet has ruined. Helping me along the way is my group of friends who have only passing knowledge of the Slenderman and never played this game when it originally released, over 10 years ago. Their opinions on the game are as fresh as you can get in 2022. Their input has been invaluable in the making of this video and has steeled my resolve to continue making it. But I am still afraid that I'll find the game has always been mid at best, and this video will only serve to tear down my admiration for a childhood game I've held so close for so long. But I suppose we'll never find out if we never try, so let's just jump right in. For starters, let's talk about the Slenderman briefly. What is he? Well, Slenderman first appeared on the internet in June of 2009. He is the creation of Eric Knudsen, commonly known by his username Victor Surge, and was posted on a thread in the Something Awful forum. The thread in question was a Photoshop contest where users were supposed to make paranormal images. Knudsen uploaded 2 images, which you can see on screen here, and wrote short captions for each image from supposed witnesses of the scene. The images read as follows. "We didn't want to go. We didn't want to kill them, but its persistent silence and outstretched arms horrified and comforted us at the same time." One of 2 recovered photographs from the Sterling City Library blaze, notable for being taken the day which 14 children vanished and for what is referred to as the Slenderman. Deformities cited as film defects by officials. Fire at library occurred 1 week later, actual photograph confiscated as evidence. Photographer Mary Thomas, missing since June 13th, 1986. These stories served not only to name the Slender Man, but also gave readers something to latch onto and theorize about. As a result, the creature quickly grew in popularity and spread across the internet. However, Slenderman still remained fairly underground as just a popular creepypasta. It wasn't until June of 2012, with the release of Slender, the game, that the monster would reach the mainstream, with YouTubers like PewDiePie and Markiplier playing it and uploading their reactions. To explain the premise of the game real quick, you only have one goal: collect all 8 pages scattered around the map. You're armed with only a flashlight and can sprint in short bursts. The default walking speed is extremely slow, which only adds to the tension as you plead with your character to move any faster or sprint just a little longer. The game was also free to play and had very simple graphics, which gave it an extremely low barrier to entry. Anyone could try it and it could run on just about any computer. You could pull out your dad's old laptop from 2003 and it could run the game at 4K 60 FPS, no problem. For me, this led to plenty of nights at friends' houses downloading the game and daring each other to play it. Back then, if you could sit in a dark room alone and play this, you had bragging rights. We all had seen the videos online, and we all knew how scary the game was, but it was still so terrifying despite all this knowledge we had going in. Why exactly was that? Well, I'm glad you asked. The first thing you see upon opening the game is yes, the default Unity trees sprinkled over a flat ground texture with some swaying grass thrown in. Truly the peak of gaming back in 2012. In all seriousness though, this is what I was talking about when I said the game had simple graphics. Though it's seen as a weakness today, the graphics still help the game more than hinder it. Not only in raw performance, but stylistically it ends a sort of edge to the game and makes it feel like a haunted piece of media created to house a monster. Imagine if it had been created in Unreal Engine 5 with ray trace lighting and 8K textures. Yeah, it would have looked incredible, but it would have been inaccessible to those with lower-end PCs, and it looked like every big-budget horror project out there. Having the graphics it does, and having it spread generally through word of mouth, gave a feeling of mystery to the game. Again, making it feel haunted in some way, like it was something you weren't supposed to be playing. That being said, if the map consisted solely of trees and grass, I would wholeheartedly agree that it was bland. But it doesn't. On the map, there are various landmarks you come across. These can range from a bigger tree to the iconic bathroom, trucks, and a large tunnel. Each one has the potential to hold one of the 8 pages you're tasked with finding, and helps break up the monotony of the forest. Of these landmarks, the most well-known one is the previously mentioned bathroom. Entering this hellish building still fills me with dread to this day, as it turns a wide-open space into tight corridors. If you thought seeing Slenderman peek at you from behind a tree was scary, wait until you're trapped in the walls of this building, turning each and every corner, praying that he's not there waiting on the other side. Some players might enter this building thinking they're safe inside, only to get obliterated by a jump scare they couldn't possibly prepare for. Not to discount the other landmarks, but they just don't have the same impact the bathroom does, though they all force the player to look around and give Slenderman new ways to scare the shit out of you or kill you outright, and are a necessary inclusion for navigation. My personal favorite, aside from the bathroom, is the rocks. Something about how they're shaped and the fact that you can walk between them always spooked me. Plus, they are colored very similarly to the pages, which forces you to look at them closely to see if there is a note. Some of you watching may think I'm reaching when I talk about the graphics of this game. Obviously, I don't think these were artistic decisions made purposefully. I'm sure that in reality, the developer, Mark J. Hadley, just wanted to make something quick and easy for fun. I'm sure if he wanted to use higher quality assets or give the world more detail, he would have, but that doesn't take away from the final product. The graphics we have only add to the creep factor of the game for me, though I understand where people who don't like them are coming from. However, that's only half of the experience, and it's not the half that will truly scare you. Of course, I'm talking about the sound design of Slender the 8 Pages is far and away the strongest asset the game has. This has been an opinion I've held for years, and it's one my friends echoed when I asked what scared them the most about the game. The two main components in play are the footstep sounds and the music. When the game begins, all you can hear is ambient nature sounds like bugs, the wind, rustling leaves, and the crunch of your own footsteps as you walk. It's quite calming, almost like you're just out for a nightly stroll at a local park. The rhythmic crunch of your steps is simultaneously soothing and satisfying, quietly lulling you into a comfortable state of mind. This comfort is quickly ripped away, however, when you find your first page and pick it up. That's the first of many layers that the game will build on as you continue. These ominous booms turn the comforting rhythm of your steps against you, and if you're going in not knowing what Slenderman is, then you're even more on edge. This sound is an obvious signal that something has changed, but you don't know exactly what it is. In all honesty, I can't explain from a psychological perspective why this kind of music is so off-putting, but I don't think any sort of explanation is necessary. If you're hearing this, then you can feel it. However, as I said, this is only the first layer, the foundation for what's to come. Even on a first-time playthrough, I don't think it's uncommon for someone to find multiple pages. If you're lucky, or unlucky, enough to find 3, this is what you'll hear. A creepy, bassy sounding synth is layered over the booms. It sounds like something you'd hear in a Hollywood horror film, and it never fails to raise attention for me. Though it is unlikely a first-time player will find more than this many pages, someone who is experienced definitely will, and upon picking up their 5th page, this is what they hear. I don't know about you, but that to me sounds like breathing, or some strong wind. Either way, it's forceful and a bit angry, like Slenderman is growing more agitated that you've evaded his grasp so far. At this point, we're 3 layers deep, and it's starting to sound more frantic, aligning the music with how the player is surely feeling at this point, and cranking those feelings up to 11. You can quite literally feel him breathing down the back of your neck as you run through the trees searching for the last few pages you need. And if you manage to find 2 more, totaling 7, then you're greeted with another layer of music. When I hear this, I can imagine many things. The digital, distant beeping reminds me of some sort of signal. It's both a call of distress and a warning of low power. By the time you've gotten 7 pages, you're definitely running low on stamina, which makes escaping the Slenderman even harder. However, there's also the staticky, mechanical breath that sounds like glass shards in your ear. It feels like Slender is mere inches from your neck, waiting to catch you slipping so he can steal you away into the night. On top of all of this, adding another layer to the already frantic sound of the previous iteration only raises the panic level. By this time, most players will die, again and again. There are some, however, who will manage to collect the final 8th page. What do you hear then? Well, yeah, I'm not going to play it for you. You'll have to discover it for yourself. Or just look it up online, but that's no fun. I hope by now you understand why I consider the sound design of this game to be the scariest aspect of it. It is crisp, calculated, and absolutely terrifying. Again, I don't have any explanation for what makes this exactly scary, but if you're hearing it, then I don't need to explain it. In fact, I'd say any in-depth analysis of the music would dampen its effect. It doesn't matter why it's scary, just that it is. Oh, and speaking of sounds, who could forget the iconic jump scare sound? Oh my... There are many things about Slender the 8 Pages that make it scary. In this video, I focus mostly on the visuals and audio, but there are some smaller things I want to briefly touch on that didn't make it into the main sections for one reason or another. The first of which are the pages themselves. These things look like they were scrawled by some lunatic hunched over in the bathroom. Not only do they look spooky as heck, but they also give you clues about how to fight back against Slender. Specifically the "don't look" or "it takes you" and "follows" pages tell you that you can't look at Slenderman for too long and that he's always behind you, respectively. The next thing I want to touch on is Slenderman himself. I know I talked about how the simple graphics of this game worked in its favor, but that doesn't really apply to the Slenderman model in-game, especially when you compare it to the source material. I mean, look at it. For 2012, this was fine since no one had a clue who or what he was supposed to be, but today this just looks awful and can really pull you out of the game when you see him. Though, I don't know how you could make such a simple character look scary. Take a gander at how he appears in Slender the Arrival, the official sequel to 8 Pages. He looks like he wants to sell you car insurance, for fuck's sake. Really, the only thing I can say about the original model is that it blended with the simple look of that game really well. I just wish it was better looking in retrospect. In the decades since its release, Slender the 8 Pages has faded into nostalgic obscurity, while Slenderman himself has devolved into nothing but a punchline about the bygone era of creepypastas, and a monster reserved for horrible film adaptations. The reasons for this fall from grace are apparent, but I think the biggest contributor is the lack of innovation in the gameplay. Every single Slender-like game ever made follows the same formula of find X number of objects to win. They all have escalating music and a monster that follows you. With a gameplay loop that straightforward, it's no surprise the games fizzled out quickly. They're one-trick ponies. Once you know how they work, they aren't scary anymore, and thus not entertaining to play or watch. That's not to say the game doesn't have a place in indie horror history, or the character itself hasn't inspired great videos. Take a look at Marble Hornets, Everyman Hybrid, and Tribe 12. It's just so sad to see that time hasn't treated this beloved monster from my childhood well. But that's how it goes, I suppose. Things quickly become popular on the internet and are taken over by something else just as fast as they arrived. Still, Slender the 8 Pages is a phenomenal piece of indie game art that was extremely influential in the early 2010s. Everything from its simple look and beautiful sound design to the free-to-play aspect and mystery around its monster has, in my eyes, only ever been successfully replicated by Five Nights at Freddy's, a series of games that needs no introduction if you're watching this video. Hell, before FNAF games were even a thing, Slender clones were just as, if not more, prevalent than FNAF fan games are today. You couldn't go more than a week without a YouTuber you liked playing a new Slender game. The most popular of which were the Slenderman's Shadow series of games, but we'll talk about those in due time. Maybe. So, how'd I do? Did I build up this wonderful game from my childhood or reduce it to rubble? I would say neither. What I've done here is reinforce the opinions I already held. Slender the 8 Pages had a quiet yet powerful impact on my life. It sparked my desire to make YouTube videos, my love for internet horror, and just generally scared the ever-living shit out of me to the point where it would inevitably become a permanent fixture in my head. Which of those three is the strongest, I will let you decide. Regardless, I highly recommend you download the game and give it a try for yourself if you haven't. There will be a link in the description. And with that, I've said all I can for this video. I appreciate you watching this far, and remember to take breaks, drive safe, and get plenty of sleep. I hope to see you again soon. Good night.